Hello, 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 and good night. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Good
I can
night.
hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. Just giving the others a few more moments before we begin. In the meantime, how was that homework assignment? Was it invigorating enough?
A lot.
Great. That was the whole idea. Nothing works better than practice in accounting, especially as it is with many other things. So if you haggle and struggle and all that stuff, that's good. That's what it's supposed to be.
Those
Alright.
those adjustments,
Uh-huh.
I attempted it.
Okay, that's good. Whether you believe it or not, even in the real world, accountants who are certified, who work in organizations, sometimes forget to do certain adjustments, and sometimes they don't do them correctly for some reason or the other. And oftentimes they're not discovered something that happens until the auditors come in and have a look. So if you feel yourself struggling with it, that's okay.
Yeah.
Perfectly okay. Any peculiar problems anybody had that you may want to raise that might be helpful to your colleagues?
I think balancing in error. I don't know. I got my stuff to balance, but
Okay,
I still a little iffy about the whole situation. So we'll see what happens.
that's fine. If you got it to balance, that means you got to a considerable distance. Okay,
Yeah,
get that
I
far,
got them.
something right for sure. All right. I'm just happy you put in the time to actually go through the process. It'll be very helpful when the time comes for your midterm exam. When is your midterm exam again? Anyone?
In 8 weeks.
February 28th.
I thought it's next week. Or week after next.
Did somebody say 8 weeks?
It ain't in 8 weeks.
No,
The final exam, you mean?
I didn't say the final exam. I said
My
mid.
bad. I was being hopeful.
You went to the end of the thing. No, mid on which day? Which date? You guys need to write it down so that
February
you
28th.
track of it.
Mr. Wilkinson, February 28th.
February 28th. Please make a note so that there are no surprises like, oops, I thought it was the February the 29th or something.
Well, the 28th is a Monday, so I don't know.
Yeah, that's when it is. February the 28th. Okay. For those of you, I don't think we have any online students from outside of New Providence, I don't believe. And so that means that all of you are here in New Providence. You'll have to find your way down to the Institute on Shirley and Elizabeth Avenue to write your examinations. They'll have everything prepared and set up for you down there to do your exam. Okay.
Mr. Wilkinson, I would not be on the island. I'm not sure. I may need to reschedule because I am having surgery March 1st. So that's the night before.
Oh. Oh yeah, that's the night before surgery.
Yeah.
My. Okay, Chanel, keep me posted as we get
Okay.
closer to that date. Let me know what's happening. You might have a miracle before then and not have to have surgery. How's that?
There you go. Speak it.
All right. So yeah, you never know. Crap happens. All right, just keep me posted, and as we get closer, and if you do have to do that, and we have to reschedule in your case, that would be an extraordinary situation. So we can talk about that. Okay. But in the
Oh, you
meantime,
can just give her a free aid. How about that?
Mario, I love you, Mario.
Mario is Mario's on giving freebies already.
Take Mario's advice, Mr. Wilkinson.
Then there'd be no challenge. That's boring.
Yeah.
For sure. For sure. Okay. All right. So folks, the other people look like they're on their own, blah, blah, blah. So we'll get started. They'll have to join us and catch up. So the exam is on the 28th, which means we have 2 classes left tonight, which will cover chapter 4, and next week we'll cover chapter 5, and then the following week you'll be doing a midterm. Please continue to read, study, prepare, do extra problems on your own. I will be assigning a problem, at least 1 problem, maybe 2, for chapter 4, and maybe another problem for chapter 5, just so that you can get the practice, the hands-on. There's nothing better than actually doing this stuff. Okay, okay, let's see who's here. Kishanti, are you here? Okay. Vanessa. Okay, come in. Hadith.
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Hadith is here present. Clinton. Okay, coming. Mario, we know is here.
That's all.
Just give an easy A and call it a day. Okay, Daniel. Daniel's on the way. Crystal.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Great. Crystal is here. Blaine. On the way. Denise.
I'm here.
Okay, excellent. Veronique. That's a hell of a name. Okay, Chanel.
I'm here.
Yes. All right, well, let's get started with chapter 4. Anybody did any reading in chapter 4 yet?
No,
Yes, sir.
I didn't.
I think this chapter 4. This chapter was a bit weird though. Like, I
Chapter
don't know
4?
if I was just being yeah, I don't know if I was like just being maybe a bit too antsy or probably anxious when I was reading it, or I don't know if it's because I was forcing myself to read it and I wasn't too enthusiastic about reading it, but it wasn't clicking the way the other chapters did.
Yeah. Uh, actually, your point is well taken. They all have their own personality, just like people. Okay. When you get around certain people, you feel X way, and then around other people, you feel Y, and then around other people, you feel nothing. So, yeah, this could be like that. But nevertheless, you just have to keep on keeping on.
Right.
All right. Let me ask you guys a question. What are the 3 main elements of an income statement?
Revenues, expenses, and net income or loss.
Good. Man, this stuff is kicking in already. That's music to my ears. What are the components of the statement of owner's equity? How do you calculate it?
I could get that one.
Anyone?
Well, the assets, liabilities,
That's
owner's
that's
equity.
the capital and the net income minus the withdrawals.
Okay, that's not bad. It's not 100%, but it's close. Okay. The statement of owner's equity begins with the beginning balance of the owner's equity account, meaning whatever is invested in the company, remember?
Mm-hmm.
And then to that, we add net income and we subtract withdrawals. And then we have
Really?
ending balance. Okay, folks? So that's the formula for owner's equity. Those are 2 great formulas to know. If you don't know them by heart yet, you may want to learn them by heart because they will make your life so much easier in accounting. What are the 3 elements of the balance sheet?
Oh, that's good.
Assets and liabilities,
Mhm.
on the owner's equity.
Absolutely. Which of the three elements do we have to add together?
Liabilities and owner's equity.
Okay, doggone, this stuff is, you guys are on a roll. I feel so much better already, that you're getting this stuff already. Sometimes it takes students well into the semester before they could let these things, concepts roll off their lips. So you guys are doing pretty good. All right. So then let's get into our discussion about completing the accounting cycle. The last time we looked at the adjusting entries. Does anybody remember why we do adjusting entries in the first place?
To keep stuff current or accurate.
Yeah, to correct account balances so that certain accounts have the correct amounts in them. Because if you do not make the adjusting entries, the balances in the accounts will be incorrect. And as a result of that, the financial statements will be incorrect. All right. Do you guys have a decision point in your book? Like decision point?
Just have to say apply it.
You have the apply, but you don't have decision point.
Or no, I think that's, yeah, I think your decision point is how I'll apply it.
No, I think this has applied too. It's just that they didn't include decision points in that text, unfortunately. They left
Their
off.
business perspective.
That's another aspect as well. All right.
Mm,
So we know that once we've completed the adjusting entries, in order to prepare the adjusting entries, we have to make a journal entry for each one. So example, if you have prepaid insurance and 1 month has expired or 1 year has expired, then we have to debit an expense account and credit the asset account prepaid, whatever it is. And we do that. If we've collected money but we haven't earned any revenue yet, what's the adjusting entry? We've collected money but we haven't done anything yet. What's the
Unearned
adjusting
revenue.
entry? Sorry?
Unearned revenue.
Debit or
Cash.
credit? You have to say
Credit.
debit or credit.
Credit unearned revenue, you debit cash.
Debit cash, yeah, and credit.
You debit cash and then you credit unearned revenue. Sorry.
Correct. Okay. Can somebody think of a third adjusting entry that you did in your homework that we discussed?
So you mean you also like unearned revenue left?
Say it again.
By that you mean like you have unearned revenue left instead of a more work to do?
Unearned revenue left.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you got the money and you didn't do any work, you had to make an adjustment, debit to cash, credit to unearned revenue. The adjusting entry would also be, let's say you earn 50% of it. What would be adjusting entry there? What do
You credit. You
Did you say you
debit.
earn 50% of it?
Yeah, whatever the amount is. You've earned 50% of the unearned revenue because you did some work.
Okay.
No, you have to debit unearned revenue and credit
50%.
revenue.
Yeah, you debit unearned revenue,
Credit revenue.
credit revenue. Absolutely, very good.
Okay.
Question?
The 50%. Why you put the 50% in there?
Oh, because there wasn't a dollar amount. I just threw that in there to say that some portion of it was earned. You follow what I mean?
Not really.
Okay. I could have said, or he could have said, $3,000 is earned. So instead of putting 50%, then we have a figure now. So what would be the journal entry if 3,000 is earned?
1,500.
And what would be the journal entry?
Oh, the debit 1,500 to unearned and then 1,500 to revenues.
Absolutely. Okay. All right, good stuff. Same applies for depreciation and then other adjustments you need to make. Do you guys have an adjusted trial balance in your text in chapter 4?
Mm,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah. What does it look like? Does it look like a normal trial balance?
it does. It looks like it.
Oh,
But
okay.
Yeah,
Blue
no,
State,
no,
Blue
no,
Design
it is.
Studios, is that what everybody looking at?
Yeah.
So it looks like a typical trial balance with all the debits on the left and all the credits on the right. But do you see all of the adjusting entries that you made in there?
No.
Or do you see any adjusting entries in there?
We can't determine if it is
That's some
adjusted.
adjusted figures.
I see depreciation expense, office equipment.
No,
What else do you see?
I see, um, the wages payable, I think.
Okay, wages payable. How much was that?
That was 720. All right, 720.
Are they all parts and parcel from your adjusting entries that you made earlier?
Yeah, that's a lot.
You're referring to chapter 3. You're connecting this to chapter 3, Mr. Wilkinson.
I'm trying to make the connection. We're in chapter 4, but I'm wondering if you guys see an adjusted trial balance in chapter 4.
Yeah,
We have
because they,
that on page 134, but we are not able to determine, I guess, based on the last chapter, how they identified the adjusting entries. They have just put everything together. Nothing is highlighted, italicized, different colors, but we
Okay,
can't recognize the account.
so what's your first entry in the adjusting trial balance?
Cash 22,480 debit.
In your adjusted trial balance?
That's correct.
yes,
Okay. And what's the next entry?
accounts receivable.
And they go all the way down.
Yeah, office equipment.
Now, do you see any adjusting entries in there?
We see the accumulated depreciation office equipment.
Okay,
We have the unearned design revenue. No, I don't think that one is adjusted.
The wages payable,
Wages payable, right?
how much?
the design revenue.
720 is the wages payable.
Yeah, don't those entries sound familiar, like those are adjustments that were made?
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct.
Capitals, the
Yeah.
capital and then the withdrawal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so within the trial balance, you would find or should find elements of all the adjusting entries you made, the debits and the credits.
Correct.
All right, and they would be in there at their corrected balances. All right, and this is why we do the adjusting entries so that we can come up with the correct balances, and then we check those balances again by putting them in the trial balance. Okay.
Okay, so then you have two adjusted, Mr. Wilkinson. One which would have been the first adjustment, and the second one which confirms your entries.
Yeah, you can say that for the sake of simplicity, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, you make the adjusting entries, which come in the form of what? Journal entries. And then, as all journal entries, you have to post them to the general ledger accounts. Does that make sense?
Yes,
And then once you post them to the general ledger accounts, whatever your new balances are, they are the ones that go into the trial balance. Do you follow how that works?
yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Good. And that's going to be the process, and that's how it is every single time. Accountants don't change that program. The numbers might change, but the process does not change. Okay? All right. So let's see what else is kicking. Now, the accounting cycle really just kind of designed to show you how information moves around in the accounting process. And the cycle, once it comes to an end, a new year begins and the cycle begins all over again. And it continues that way indefinitely until the business finally closes, whenever that might be, if ever. Okay. Do you see the steps of the accounting cycle in chapter 4 in your text?
Yeah,
You do.
Okay.
Which page is that?
that's 134.
134.
Okay. What is step number 1?
Close the credit balances on the income statement account to the income summary account.
Really? That's the accounting cycle?
Preparing
That's
closing
preparing
entries,
closing.
that's what that
That's
is.
closing, that's closing. entries, yeah.
Oh, that's preparing closing entries. My apologies.
I
Yeah,
kind of,
that's looking at space. I'm looking for,
Where you all find the steps?
I thought that was the steps there. I just thought the word step. I assumed that was it.
Sorry, that's the only thing I see.
I see preparing the worksheet. I see that's a lot of accounting cycle.
you guys don't see the accounting cycle?
No, what I was reading was preparing closing entries before steps for that.
That's interesting.
I mean, that's the title of the chapter. Really,
But I'm thinking that this issue on the accounting cycle should show up almost immediately. But apparently it's not immediately in chapter 4, unfortunately.
I was.
hold on,
reading
hold on,
chapter.
on page 131, chapter 1. Completing the accounting cycle,
What is the first step?
concept, what
The
is,
first step.
this, oh. Hold on,
Really.
Yeah, 6 steps.
oh no, this one had.
Wowzers.
Describe the role of closing entries in preparation for financial statement, huh?
Okay. Closing entries are coming. Let me just prod you on before we get to closing entry. The accounting cycle itself has 6 steps. All right. You may want to make a note of them until you find them in your text. They will be there somewhere. You probably just haven't come across them in your chapter 4. All right. First step in the accounting cycle is to analyze business transactions. Okay. Which we've been doing all along, which you did in your homework every day that you were doing it. Analyze business transactions, usually from source documents. Anybody remembers what a source document is?
Like a receipt.
Yeah, a receipt would be a source document. What else?
What? I don't know.
A what?
Anything that kind of holds like the monetary value, the reason, like the details of the transaction.
Yeah, anything with details of the transaction, proof of transaction. Any document that provides proof of the transaction is a source document. Right? So step number 1, analyze business transactions using a source document. Step number 2, and once we're done with this cycle, it doesn't change. And you guys have done quite a bit of this cycle already. All right. Analyzing business transactions is what you have to do in order to prepare journal entries. So all those journal entries that you prepared for adjustments or whatever, they are really part of your analysis. In other words, when you do a journal entry, you have to always decide what to debit and what to credit. That's what number 1 is. Number 2.
Mr. Wilkinson, sorry to interrupt. So that, just so you all would know, that was in chapter 1, I think page 46 and 47, the
There
accounting
you
cycle.
go. Thank you very much.
I
It
think I
was,
saw it somewhere.
it was all the way in your chapter 1.
Wow,
I'm like, who could remember chapter 1 again? Are you kidding me?
you out of chapter 1?
It is in chapter 1. I'm just rehashing it
Yeah.
to remind you of the cycle.
Okay,
Okay? And that cycle never changes.
Ah, there it is. Yeah.
Right?
I remember.
So, step 1, analyze business transactions. What's step 2?
It's
Record the transactions by entering them in the general journal.
Yes, record all transactions by entering them in the general journal. You guys should be journal entry experts by now, shouldn't you?
We should.
Because one of my homework questions specifically said, refer to question 13A something and prepare the journal entries, correct?
Yes.
It did. And I assigned that so you can practice step 2 in the accounting cycle, which is recording the transactions in the general journal. I hope you guys follow the nice format on how to prepare journal entries in your textbook. If it doesn't look as pretty as that, that's fine, as long as the information is in the correct place and the amounts are correct. Okay. All right, these steps are critical. No matter how far you go in accounting, these steps will always be the steps. Period. Okay. Analyze the transactions using a source document. Accountants don't analyze stuff that people tell them. They analyze proof on a document. And we don't want your opinion. We want the document, the proof that the transaction has occurred. Once we have that done, we record that information in a general journal. And then we go to step number 3, which is
Post.
yeah,
Posting.
posting the journal entries where?
To the ledger, the
To
general
the
ledger.
general ledger.
And then,
Prepare a trial balance.
which all of you should be able to do by now. So those journal entries, you post them to each of the general ledger accounts and you post them correctly. Because if you don't, you won't balance. The financial information will be wrong. Okay, so you have to post them correctly to the general ledger accounts. And then once you've done that, you can then extract the balances from each general ledger account, the balance, and prepare a trial balance. If you did everything correct from step 1 to step 3, then your trial balance should balance. If your trial balance does not balance, you've done something incorrectly. You go back and find out what it is. Okay. What about step 4?
That's talking about adjusting the account.
That's what we did last week, right?
Yes.
Adjust the accounts and prepare what?
Adjusted trial balance.
Exactly. So once you prepare those adjusting journal entries, as you did last week and in your homework, then you should come up with new balances for all the accounts that were adjusted, correct? Yes?
Should.
All right.
Does it happen?
If you do that correctly, and you do your adjusted trial balance with your new numbers, it should balance. If it does not balance, you did something wrong. You have to go back to the adjusting entries and see what you did wrong. Okay? So you have a trial balance before adjustments, and you have an adjusted trial balance following your adjustments. Cycle never changes. All right. Once you have prepared your adjusted trial balance, then you are free to do what? Step number 5.
Prepare the financial statement.
Prepare the financial statements. Not to worry, you will see how that's done for sure before the smoke clears. Okay? And then the final step,
Close the account.
Close the accounts.
close the accounts. Now, in accounting, we have 2 types of accounts, permanent accounts and anybody knows the other one?
Temporary.
Anybody knows the difference between the two? What do they do? They perform very different functions.
I think the temporary accounts sort of like hold values to help support the permanent accounts, for lack of better explanation. That's kind of the gist of it.
Okay,
That's been known as a bad explanation.
all right. So temporary accounts, then, those accounts that we close every year and bring them to zero. They are usually all revenue accounts. So at the end of the year, we bring all the revenue accounts to zero and all the expense accounts to zero. And whatever the difference is, if it's a profit, it is transferred to capital. If it's a loss, it is deducted from capital. Okay, what about permanent accounts? What are they?
Like,
Like cash,
Like, yeah, and accounts receivable, what continues,
Have a running balance.
yeah.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. You guys have the gist. Permanent accounts are balance sheet accounts. They do not close at the end of the year. They remain open and those balances are carried forward into the
Next cycle or next.
cycle, yeah.
next cycle, yes. The next accounting cycle. And the reason why we call it a cycle, because the cycle never changes. It just keeps going around and around and around from one year to the next. Okay. All right. So now we can talk a little bit about closing entries now that we know their origins. But before we look at closing entries, please take a look at the diagram. I don't know if you have it, an overview or diagram of the accounting cycle. Do you guys have that?
Which page is that again?
What page is that again, someone?
Yeah, this
46 and 47, come on.
The diagram.
one. Okay.
some 46.
Okay.
Exhibition 5, exhibit
Yeah, it's
5.
on page 46.
Yeah, you guys see like some guys sitting at the board table or some table who
Yeah.
are towards the decision makers.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where I guess the cycle starts. And then the arrow goes to what? Business activity.
Measurement.
Yeah, business activity. And then the business activity leads to measurement. What is being measured?
Transactions from the
Okay.
source documents.
Yeah, the same thing we saw, the first step in the accounting cycle. All right. And now we're measuring and analyzing those transactions, and then some other things are going on in these green boxes. What's going on in number 2?
Record them to the journal.
What are we recording to the general journal?
The transaction from source documents.
The transactions from the source documents are recorded permanently in the journal. The next arrow goes where?
Post the entries to the ledger and prepare trial balance.
Ledger.
Yep, same as we saw. Post
Mhm.
the entries, the general ledger accounts, and prepare the trial balance, which, if everything is fine, should balance. Any other green boxes?
Not green, but we have other boxes.
Okay, what's the next step after the posting?
Adjust the accounts and prepare adjusted trial balance.
Does that make sense to everybody now after all that homework?
Yes.
I
I
hope
still don't
so.
get that trial, that adjusted trial balance.
Oh, let's say you have.
No, I mean, okay, so when you put in pen to paper is where I have the issue, so to speak.
When you say pen to paper, you mean you have it in your head and you're fine, but when you try to write it down?
Because, okay, so because I haven't seen an example before, like for instance, you need to know, in order for you to balance, you need to know where your, let's say, depreciation from equipment or your unearned revenue, you need to know where they go. On You understand? In order to balance. And so, like I said, because I haven't seen one, I get mixed up.
Okay,
And so then it becomes a guessing game for me.
so what do you think? Sorry,
I agree.
what do you agree with?
I need to see examples. It's
Of what?
the same for me. The same thing she was explaining.
I got like concurring with them. I got majority of my homework done from examples in the book. I think maybe the third assignment. I mean, I did it and I sent it. I'll need you on your end to like just show me what I did wrong. So going forward, I know what to do right.
With regards to what?
The homework.
I know, what specific part of the homework you're referring to? Or you just
Um,
general?
I was saying in general, but in terms of when I was finding, I found the owner's equity. It was one was when it was finding the owner's equity and doing the balance sheet.
Right?
I was trying to figure out it. I had to read it, but I was trying to figure out which goes on a debit and which goes on a credit in terms of the expenses and the payables.
Oh, that part of it, those are the rules from chapter 1. You just have to learn them and practice them over time. Some
Yes,
people
so-
get the rules early,
Yes,
some get them later.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
That's why you have to keep practicing.
Yes, sir. But
Okay? Trust me, like everything else, you're not going to get it if you're not working it.
yes, sir.
If you read it and say, oh yeah, I think I got it now, and you're not practicing it by doing problems and doing them over and over until you're comfortable with it, it's
Yeah.
going to take a longer time to grasp it.
Yes, sir.
The debit with the credit. And even that process, that is not an overnight affair. You get better and better with that over time.
Yes, sir.
Trust me, over time is not over 3 chapters.
Yes, sir.
Okay, wouldn't that be great? Doesn't work that way.
Yes, sir.
When I was doing my associate degree at the College of the Bahamas in accounting, I had to do all the other usual college level courses, but I had to do 6 major accounting class courses. One was fundamentals of accounting, one like this one, and 2, which hopefully you guys will do as soon as it's offered again while this is fresh in your mind. Okay? If you're broke, borrow the money. If whatever you need to do, go and make payment arrange, whatever, but do it while it's fresh in your mind. It's very important, because otherwise you get stuck, you don't do it, another year passes or more, and then whenever you decide to get to it, it's like starting from scratch again. Okay? Sometimes for some students. Right?
Yes.
But I remember doing that stuff, fundamentals of accounting 1 and 2, then intermediate accounting 1 and 2, and then advanced accounting 1. And I'm like, man, what the hell am I getting myself into? And that was only the associate degree. That wasn't even the first degree details yet. I had another 2 years before you get to. So what I'm saying to you, it's not an overnight affair. And so don't worry if things are not dropping like flies as quickly as you would like them. It does not work that way. Some things you get very clearly and you move on. Other things you come over time and practice. Okay, for sure. All right. So somebody was saying, I don't get those adjusting entries and that bloody adjusting entry, that adjusted trial balance. Well, does everybody know how to prepare a trial balance yet?
I have some idea.
No, I did
I
not
have some
finish
idea.
the homework.
Someone has an idea, somebody says no. So how did you guys get through the homework if you couldn't do that?
That's what I was saying. I only got no excuse for them to say.
Okay. Everybody's familiar with a transaction, correct?
Oh,
Yes,
good
sir.
question. Good question. Is it like the trial balance, like pretty much like the that's not the value. That's like the value of the accounts after most of the debits and the
Everything
credits
is
there.
done. Yeah,
After
Yeah,
it's
the
closed.
yeah.
that's what I did with this trial balance. All that happened. I think this was the third assignment, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
What did you do?
That's after all of the accounts, the totals, whether you add or subtract the difference for each accounts, you would put whether it's debit or credit.
Right,
And then both of them should balance after
Yeah, each side
you
should
total
balance.
all the account. Yeah.
And
simple
then
as
that comes from putting them all in the accounts, right?
Yes, from the
That's
T
after
accounts.
Oh,
Yeah.
After all the
okay.
posting on the T accounts.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. After the postings to the T accounts, whatever the balances are, you put the debits on the debit side, the credits on the credit side, and the trial balance. That's it.
Right.
Yeah.
And then if this doesn't balance, you definitely have to go
Go
back.
back to the T
To the
account.
T accounts.
Everything, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Simple as that. There's
Yeah,
no
simple.
magic.
So after 3 hours, we go over time.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, nobody
That
cares
wouldn't be
about your
fun.
time, you just have to
It's
go
just a
back.
lot. Mm.
Even
No, I
in
say stay about 3 hours and don't get paid overtime.
definitely,
That wouldn't be fun.
that's what I mean. Nobody cares about your problems, just fix it.
What?
Okay, welcome to the real world. See my point? I understand exactly what you mean. Okay, but you're gonna find, if you haven't found already, bosses just want things done. They don't really hear your problems all the time. Just fix it. Sometimes you may have to go and get special help or whatever, but generally speaking, sometimes, yeah. So if you have to spend 3 hours or 6 hours doing it, nobody gives a damn. Just do it. All they want are the what? Results. See? That's the world you guys live in now, whether you know it or not yet. All right. So yeah, that's how to do a trial balance, just as simple as that. And so once you do the trial balance, the next step is to what? Prepare the adjusting entries. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And then,
And how do we prepare
income
adjusting
statement.
entries? We do the debits and credits for each item to be adjusted. And I believe we talked about each of them, and I'm sure the homework walked you through a couple of them. So you would have had the opportunity to practice adjusting entries. Adjusting entries to revenue, adjusting entries to depreciation, adjusting entries to prepayment. See, those are adjusting entries. And you just have to know which ones they are, because we don't adjust all the accounts, do we?
No.
No. And somebody says, how do I know which one? You go back to your text and learn which one. Okay? Just like if you see 10 women in a group, guys, and you know, say, which one is my girl? You know, any problem with that? You say, let me see. Oh, that one. Okay, so you have to learn the ones that have to be adjusted. And I just gave you most of them. There's some others, but the ones that you need to know for now are the ones that we discussed last week and the ones that you did in your homework. So if you did those, then you understand the fundamentals of adjusting entries. Now, once you prepare the adjusting journal entries, then you have to post them. See, don't forget that step, because if you forget that step, dog eat your lunch. All right. And once you post the adjusting entries, then whatever those new balances are in the general ledger, they become the balances for the what? Adjusted trial balance. See, that's all. No magic.
Yeah, I didn't do that one.
Yeah.
I tried it.
No
Don't get me
magic.
wrong.
No magic at all. You just go through the process. Okay? Simple. All right. Now that you guys are becoming bookkeeping experts, let's talk about the closing entries. We said temporary accounts are closed at the end of the year and brought to zero. Permanent accounts are not. Did we say that? Okay.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. The thing about academic work is you have to keep working it until the semester is done. There's no time offs. There are no breaks. You only stop so that you don't lose your mind, sleep, and go right back to it. You have to consume yourself in it. If you just have a casual relationship with it, you're gonna have a problem. Unless, of course, you just want casual results. So if you're dating someone, Mario, and you said, I just want us to have a casual relationship, then when you call her and she doesn't answer, don't ask her where she's been, right, Mario? Because you only want a casual relationship. Now, accounting is like that. If you're casual with it, your results will be casual. But if you're serious about it, then you'll pay much more what? Attention to it. Just as you would to her. And then the more attention you pay to her, the more willing she'll be able to say and respond to your concerns. What can I say? Accounting is a real life subject. A lot of people just don't see it. Okay. Do you guys have the figure that is showing the overview of the account closing process? Those two accounts that look like it's going down, down, down? No?
Yeah, we are.
You have
Oh, we
it?
do.
Yeah.
You have it?
What page is that, Bill?
You know, what page is that?
We still on 46 and 47?
I need that.
Which one I wanted?
You should be looking at an overview of the closing process with some
Yeah.
key
Oh,
accounts
the
going
step.
down. You don't have that?
135.
There we go. I'm trying
Okay,
that.
preparing closing entries.
Do you have any figure showing the various T accounts? No?
Unless we mean like this thing will say application level entry.
Yeah, the one page 135.
What do you see on page 135?
You were looking for the preparing closing entries from the adjusted trial balance. That has the steps. Entry
Not-
1, 2, and 1 through 4.
well, do you see a diagram on that?
Yeah, those are in diagrams. Those are exhibit 2 on page 135.
Uh-huh. What is
It
the
looks like journal entries. They're in yellow boxes.
oh, you're looking at, okay, let me see if I can share my screen. That might help. Share screen. Let me see if I can bring you guys on board.
Because we're going through in our book step. It has step 1 on page 134, preparing the closing entries, and then the diagram.
Can you
Oh,
guys see?
that one. Okay, so that one is on page 133.
Uh-huh.
That
It's
one.
all, yeah, it's all that they just have them switched around, and I don't know why they did it. I guess they're trying to make some cosmetic changes. All right. So this is the overview of the closing process. All right. Notice what happens. Expense, do you see the expense account?
Yeah, that's on a credit side now.
Right, but the normal balance for an expense account is what?
The debit.
Debit.
Debit. In order to close it, what do you have to do?
What is it?
Credit.
In
Take
order
away
to
the bigger from the smaller.
no, not to close it. The
Place it
bigger
in
from
the
the
income
small,
summary
the
as a
bigger,
debit.
the bigger from the smaller is when you're trying to come up with the account balance.
Okay,
But when you are closing the account, if the normal balance is a debit, you have to credit it to close it.
oh, makes sense.
Okay? So if you have $300 in your cash account and you want to close your account, tell the bank, close my account. Okay? In the bank, they have a credit for you of $300. Say, close my account now. You're all TIFAs or whatever. And so what will they do? To close it, they will debit your account, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
closing the account is the opposite of the normal balance. So in this case, normal balance is a debit. So to close it, you have to
Credit it.
credit. And where does the credit go? Which account? It's right there. Just call the name.
Expense account. Or the
Uh,
income summary.
Income
I-
summary.
Yeah, we debit
Income summary account.
income summary. Don't worry if you don't get it yet, just follow the program. All right, so to close an expense account, we credit it and we debit what?
Income
The income
summary.
summary.
Good. To close a revenue account, what do?
Debit.
Debit
debit
and
it.
then credit
And-
the income summary
Account, correct?
account. Mhm.
At this stage, to balance the income summary account, we'll have to take the debits from the credit, don't we?
Mhm.
Which will be a what? Profit or loss, correct? In the income summary.
Agreed.
Yes,
That makes sense?
yes.
Okay, so the expense account is closed as a debit to income summary. The revenue account is closed as a credit to income summary. The difference between the two in the income summary is profit or loss. Now, that's the second step. What is the third step? They tell you, step 3,
Plus income summary.
close the income account. What's the balance of the income summary account here?
That's a debit.
A debit. So in order to close income summary,
Gotta credit.
what do? Follow the arrow.
Would you not? You wouldn't credit it to close it?
Well, do we credit it to close it? If we credit it to close it, then we'll have to debit something.
So
The capital,
basically,
like-
We're putting that
just
to
remove it to the capital?
withdrawals as a credit.
Well, let's look at it this way. Let's go back. When we debited income summary with the expense amount and credited income summary with the revenue amount, revenue, we presume, is greater than,
Expense.
Expenses.
right? So what would be the normal balance of this income summary account?
Debit.
Debit. Credit because of revenue.
It'll be a credit,
But
but so
the
you have to
normal
debit
balance
it
is
to
credit,
clear it out.
sorry. Mhm.
Yes,
the-
it would be a credit,
So
so
you
you
have to
have to
debit it.
debit it to close it.
Right.
And when you debit it to close it, in step 3, what account do you credit?
Capital.
Capital. Remember when we talked about the capital account, we said that profits do what to capital?
Oh, yeah.
Increase.
Increase capital.
Yeah,
So
capital is.
that profit that was made and shown in the income summary is credited to capital. Everybody see that?
Mhm.
Yes.
And then the final step is the withdrawal account. What's the normal balance of withdrawal?
Normally a debit.
Normally a debit, so in
You
order
have to
to
credit it.
we have to close it with a credit. And when we close it with the credit, what do we do with the debit?
Capital, debit, capital.
Debit capital. And we know that capital, that debt withdrawals do what to capital?
Decrease.
Decrease.
Decrease capital.
Okay? All right, so now the cycle, the accounts are closed. Now the revenue account has a what balance?
A credit balance.
Go back up to the diagram. The revenue account has a what balance at this stage?
To close. A debit.
Zero.
Zero, zero, zero.
So,
Sorry.
balances.
The minute we debit a revenue account for the full balance, it's zero.
Yeah.
The minute we credit an expense account for the full amount, it's zero.
But we go into a new cycle, right?
Sorry?
But we'll be going into a new cycle once we debit those the revenue from the actual from that account transfer to the capital. So we'll be starting a new cycle in that regard.
We will, but we need to be able to understand that those accounts have to be closed first.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, no new cycle until those accounts are closed and transferred to capital. How do we close the income summary account?
You close it to the capital.
How do we close it?
You credit what's in, hold on, you debit revenue and you send it to capital.
No. We debited revenue a long time ago. How do we close the income summary account? Look at the
Oh.
diagram.
Credit, capital, debit withdrawals, credit, debit, capital.
That's kind of the end of it. So I take you back to the middle. How do we close the income summary account? Look at the income summary account and tell me, how do we close it?
By crediting it to capital.
Credit
No,
capital.
we don't credit it.
As you know,
It's amazing. They say picture paints 1,000 words, but not always. Let me ask you guys something. How did we close the expense account?
by crediting.
Crediting the
What
expense
did we
account.
debit?
We debited income summary
How did we close the revenue account?
by
Debiting
debiting it.
the revenue accounts and crediting the income summary.
What is the balance in income summary after those two closing transactions?
It's
What
a
is it,
debit
debit?
balance.
No,
Oh, it's a credit balance, and to
Yeah,
close
but
it, you have the debit it.
correct.
How do you know it's a credit? Because
Sorry?
it's blank? How do you know it's a credit? Because it's blank on the
Ju-
diagram?
Yeah.
No, because revenues are usually greater than expenses.
Should be.
We don't want to complicate an already complicated situation for you guys.
Agreed,
Now, For
agreed.
now, revenues are always greater than expenses.
Okay,
So therefore, once the income summary accounts are posted, the income summary account would have a credit balance, correct?
yes,
Because revenues would be higher than expenses.
right.
In order to close income summary, what do we have to do?
Debit the
Debit.
income summary and credit the capital.
Good. All right, moving right along. And all that stuff underneath just explains what we did. Picture paints 1,000 words. And once you understand the picture, you almost don't have to look at the words, but you guys have to look at the words. Okay? Read it, that's my point. Now, closing entries. What are the steps? I'm sure you have that in chapter 4. We just talked about that, right? What is step 1?
Close the credit balance on the income statement account to the income summary account.
Correct? Isn't that what we did?
Yes.
Step 2?
Close the debit balance in the income statement account to the income summary account.
Which we did. Step 3?
Close the income summary account balance to the owner's capital account.
Which we just talked about. And then 4?
Close the withdrawal account balance to the owner's capital account.
Absolutely. What do you think after all of that would be the normal balance of the capital account?
It should be a credit.
Yes, because the profit figure will be larger than the withdrawal figure. Is it that way 100% of the times? Hell no.
No.
Most of the times, that's our wish. Okay? For the purpose.
So,
Mhm.
sorry, I just gonna ask, is there any examples with figures showing this same thing right here?
Yeah, but they put
Okay.
they put it without figures for a reason first.
All
So
right,
you can visualize it. Because if they just come up with numbers at the beginning, it'll take you longer to learn it.
To
You may
grasp
think
it.
you're not getting it
okay,
without numbers, but you are. Trust me, they didn't make a mistake by putting those MTT accounts there without numbers first.
mhm,
And you will see numbers coming out of your nose soon. But this, again, the diagram is just designed to give you a simplistic view so that you could understand what's happening, and then the numbers will come. Okay? And if you still don't get it after all that, there's a further explanation. Step 1, closing the credit balances. Do you see that? Do you guys have that? No?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
You
sir. Page
Okay,
135.
great. So read them. It's the same thing we just talked about twice. But for you, read it line by line. How about that? And so how many steps do we have altogether?
Million.
4 steps. Does everybody see the 4 steps?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
moving. Okay. You know what? Let's make it interesting. Because sometimes we like, really 4 steps? What do they mean anyway? Clinton, are you in the room yet?
I'm here. I've been here. I'm listening.
It's a good thing I called your name. I almost didn't mark you as being here. I said, let me call out to Clinton and see if he joined the group.
I had a
All
little
right,
traffic.
let's see. Traffic, yes?
Yes, sir.
I know, crazy out there. Let's see who else is here. Vanessa, have you joined us?
Yes, I'm here. Good night.
Okay, good night, Vanessa. Quiet, Lisa. I'm not saying anything. You might call me to say something, one of those bloody closing entries. Okay.
No, I'm in a bit of a pain, but I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah.
what the hell happened already?
I emailed you. I had a surgery on the weekend.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. You
Yeah.
can't be stressing yourself out.
I'm not, but I'm trying.
Good. Just
Thank you.
relax.
Okay.
Relax. If I call you to read or something, say, not tonight.
I will if I can.
Yeah, just take it easy.
Okay, thank you.
Anya. Anya's still at Starbucks. Blaine. Still at Starbucks. Herbenique.
Present.
So Herbenique, you're there quietly too.
Wilkinson,
Hi.
hello.
Hi.
Hi, this is Tanya. I'm here. I'm just driving.
Oh, Johnny, you're just trying to get home still.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. The travesties of a professional woman. Can't call on guys anymore. Can do everything for yourself. Have to work late, drive in the dark, change your own tire. How about that, Mario and Blaine? We are becoming redundant. Okay. Sorry for you guys. Okay. Tashanti, are you here? Hell no. I'm not. Okay. All right. So let me get somebody to read step 1. Okay, Vanessa, since you're at the top, can you read step 1, closing the credit balances? Let's see if it sounds like what we were talking about.
Step 1, close the credit balances on the income statement accounts to the income summary accounts. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Is that all it
Which
says?
one? Sorry.
Is that all it says?
For step 1, step 2, close the balances on the income statement accounts to the income summary account.
Okay.
Step 3, close the income summary account balance to the owner's capital account.
Yes.
Although it is not necessary to use the income summary account when
Okay.
preparing closing entries, it does simplify the procedure.
That's
And
an
then
important
step-
point.
Huh?
That's an important point. You don't have to use it, but for you newcomers and even professionals still use it just to make sure they don't miss a step. All right. And then number 4.
Close the withdrawals account balance to the owner's capital account.
There you go. Same as we just discussed for the last 15 minutes. Okay. If you still have any doubts, go back and look at it again. Okay? After a while, it becomes very simple. Until then, it can be a pain in the butt for some students. Okay? So, do you guys have the design studio exhibit in your chapter? Showing the adjusted trial balance?
Blue Design Studio
Okay, what's your cash balance?
for 22,480.
Okay, interesting. If you look at my screen, you'll see they call it Miller. I don't know, they must have gotten bored with Miller and changed it to blue because the amounts appear to be the same, correct?
Yeah.
True? Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. So the adjusted trial balance for blue. Notice the heading of these statements. Please remember I told you at the beginning of this class, accounting has headings that are done a specific way. If you do them right in my test, you get 3 easy points just for writing it up properly. If you do not put it at all, you lose 3. If you do not do it in proper order, you will lose a point for every order that's incorrect. Because we don't want you just writing anything you feel like in accounting. We have a format, we have a program, and we have an agenda. And we will not tolerate, when I say we, I mean accountants, will not tolerate anybody that tries to move away from the consistency, even in the heading on a financial statement. Because the minute you move away from the rules, then all of a sudden everybody wants to do whatever they want to do. And soon you wouldn't even be able to recognize what statement you are dealing with. You know how human beings go after a while. We go from our own thing to nothing. For some reason. All right. What are the
Mr.
total debits?
Wilkinson,
Hi.
I'm sorry. Can you send this exhibit to us? I mean, this is what I would prefer. Your exhibit is much more, I guess,
Simpler.
simplistic for us because how we have it in our manuals, it goes through too many accounts.
15 columns.
And so, yeah, I think this exhibit that you're showing us, we can understand it more because it's taking these arrows and showing us exactly which account and where it's ending. Just exhibit, I think the exhibit, the first one, this one here.
Yeah, I think they did that way because they want you to sweat through it. This here,
Yeah, prefer
I-
this one here.
I'm looking at this and I am completely lost because there's a trial balance, then there's adjustments, then
Yeah.
there's adjusted trial balance, then there's an income.
yeah,
It-
that's
it-
okay. We just kind of did that indirectly, and we'll see that again before this chapter is over. Don't worry about it. It looks a little confuddled at the moment, but it won't always look that way. Okay, for sure. But if you think it will help, you can take a picture of this. If
Yeah,
you
well, let me
think
take a
it will help.
picture because this helps me.
Yeah,
In all honesty, you're looking at this and you really, I don't know how to even read this to begin with.
that's okay because you're a beginner, so it's okay. That's like going to preschool and say, I don't know the alphabet. And then the teacher say, not to worry, this is A. Then you spend all day and all week writing A. See, it's like that. So don't worry about it. You'll get it eventually. I was
Before the
looking,
exam,
sorry?
before the exam,
Yeah, definitely
okay.
for the exam. Because we're gonna be passing this to go to chapter 5 and all next week. So you're gonna definitely get it before the exam. Then you say, wow, I was worried about that for no reason. All right. So if you look at this particular design studio trial balance, what are the total debits? Total debits?
61,500.
Okay. Total credits?
Same, 61,500. Sorry, I can't say same on the exam.
No, exactly. Thank you very much for clearing that up and keeping me from having to say you can't say same. Okay? If you say same in accounting, you get no points. And your boss will want to know if you've lost your mind. See? How about that? This has a real world element, by the way. What is the balance in the unearned design account?
600.
Is that a fact or a question?
That's a fact, $600.
Great, it's a fact. And what does that 600 mean?
That it's not earned yet.
Meaning?
That it's
Owed to the
unearned,
company.
it's owed. It's payable.
We received the
Well,
funds,
it's-
but we
yeah.
haven't given the services yet.
Exactly.
Right, you haven't done the work yet. That's what it
Yeah.
means.
Yeah.
Okay. Does the company owe any of its employees money?
Yeah, wages payable,
Wages.
How much?
$720.
When are they going to pay it? According to our last discussion, when will it be paid?
In the next pay cycle.
Great, you actually remember that. See, this crap works. See, let me tell you something. You think it's not working, but it works and it gets better as you spend more. See? Let me say it again. The level
Practice.
of attention and intimacy that you exhibit with it will give you the desired results. Mario, but if you want to treat the chick like she's a piece of furniture and call her once every 3 months,
Oh,
then
Lord.
you get what you get. Same thing with accounting. If you only want to study the surface, get to it when you have a minute in your busy schedule, then you're gonna get what you're gonna get. That's how it works. There's no magic formula. Sorry. Doggone it. Man, I've been married for decades. And when I got up this morning, guess who was staring me down, ladies?
So
Yeah.
Wilkinson, you're funny, you know.
Who that is, Mr. Wilkinson?
My angel. And she had a big
Oh.
smile on her face. And she's like, Happy Valentine's Day. And I'm like, are we still celebrating that, sweetheart? She said, yes, of course. And I'm like, okay. So yes, it's all about the time that you put in. See? Accounting is no different. And if you treat it shabbily, it will treat you shabbily. How about that? All right, so now we have our adjusted trial balance, correct?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay, and from our earlier discussion, we know how we arrived at that adjusted trial balance. And for those of us who still don't get it, that means that when the class is over, you don't go to sleep. You go back and check how we got it again. See, that's what I mean by staying with it. And when you do that and say, oh, then you could go to sleep. But if you say, man, whenever, then you stop, and then exam rolls around, you get an adjusted trial balance question. Like, what the hell? I should have looked at that night when I didn't remember. See, like that. All right, so now we know how we got the adjusted trial balance. On the right-hand side of this exhibit, we have 4 entries, don't we? 4. Do you see entry number 1?
Yes.
What is that entry? What is that journal entry?
That's
That was
a
at the end of the month.
July 31st, the debit to design revenue and a credit to the income summary. They closing it to close the revenues account.
Any question before we move on? Can't be clearer than that. We already talked about that. They're just showing it to you now.
Yes, I have a question. Is
Okay.
it possible, Mr. Wilkinson, to have, I see that it's saying from the income statement, which is the revenue. So is it possible to have more than one? Like how there's the same design revenue, you can have another set of revenue coming in? Like,
No doubt. You could have hundreds and thousands of revenue accounts.
okay, so we will do the same entry, which is all of the revenues.
You'll do the same entry for
Okay.
all of them.
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Individually.
Individually, right, okay.
Each account will have to be brought to 0. You
Okay.
follow? Yes. Good question. And then notice at the bottom of the entry, there's an explanation. See? To close the revenue account. So it's an audit trail, isn't it?
Yes.
So if somebody comes to the company 10 years later and looks at that, they say, oh, that's the journal entry too. Close. The revenue account. Yeah.
So should we be doing that as well? No way.
Of course. Of course.
Oh, Okay.
Yeah, the more you do that, the more familiar you become with what you're doing. That's the whole idea. That is
Okay.
part of the familiarization process. It is called in accounting the narrative.
Okay.
We should be doing that in real practice in the real world too, but not everybody does it. They pass an entry and then write nothing. And then 2 years later, someone says, what is this entry for? Nobody knows, fighting to figure it out because there's no what? Narrative.
Narrative.
Okay. Now all they had to do at the bottom when they made the entry is to say pay off a politician for giving me the contract. And then everybody know what the reason for that entry was. Okay. And that's the whole idea. And some people leave narratives also because they're trying to hide stuff. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Blaine. So when your girl or your wife, when you say, well, what's wrong? She said, well, nothing. Or I don't want to talk about it. It probably means she might just be in a bad mood that day. She may not be hiding anything. Okay. So we close the revenue account. What about entry number 2? You guys should be moving like full speed now.
Mm.
What is happening in entry number 2?
Debit the income summary and credit the expenses
Each one individually, okay?
individually. Yes.
Because once we post it, each one will be closed individually to 0. Right?
Yes.
Okay. And for those of you who are looking for numbers, these X's getting on my nerve. Where the numbers? These are numbers.
They don't have no narrative.
No narrative? Isn't that interesting? I wonder why I don't have a narrative for this closing entry. Is it that obvious?
It does. I mean, we know we close on expenses.
But does it have a narrative?
Oh, so did the close the income summary account? It further down. Oh, that's number 3.
Oh, further down.
But that's number 3. That's not number 2.
You don't see a narrative for number 2? Now I know my glasses don't work properly, but give me a break.
Oh, my bad. I do see it.
Okay.
Okay, the close the expense account. Okay.
Does everybody else see it? She's the only
See, I
one.
know. I know I wasn't the only one who didn't see it.
Yeah, we see, I see, I see it.
Okay.
Oh
All
my
I'm saying
lord.
is, remember what?
You lost?
I think that's my fault because I was paying attention for like 3 minutes. So I'll get it.
That's Mario, or that's Clark. Which one?
Mario Blaine, who's lost?
Me. I'm an RAO.
Who? Mario or Blaine?
I just need these diagrams. This diagram is very straightforward. That's what I know.
Yeah, I think I just need a screenshot and email. I would save lives
I think you
and
guys,
businesses.
you need to take a picture, because you have a whole, we already looked at 1 million pictures and you have a whole lot more in your text. What you need to do is become more what?
Committed.
Intimate, yes. I told you if you don't become intimate, this thing will make you suffer, just like she would. You don't believe me? Okay. Don't believe me, you'll see. All right. So yeah, there is a narrative at the bottom of entry number 2. You just have to go all the way down and actually look. It's right there. Now, under entry number 2 is what account? Under entry number 2, is
summary.
what account?
Oh, income summary.
The income summary account. Are the
Oh.
transactions posted there already so far?
They certainly are.
Yeah.
They are.
And what's the balance of the income summary after the posting?
2,960. Oh, zero.
Debit or credit?
Credit.
Credit. And then,
Okay.
to close the income summary account, what do we have to do?
We have to debit
Debit.
the capital
No,
for the,
no, no. We have to debit which account to close the income summary? For how much?
if we credit the income summary for
It's funny.
3,916.
Okay, let me put it another way. When we close the revenue and expense accounts, we post it to the income summary. What are the total debits? Are we looking at the income summary account?
Can you repeat the question?
What are the total debits in the income summary account?
9,640.
Total credits?
13,600.
Before we close this account, what is the balance of this account?
The balance of the account would be 3,916.
960, 3,900.
Debit or credit?
Debit.
Debit.
Oh, let me say the rule one more time. Whenever we're bringing down the balance of account, we use the side of the larger balance.
Which means we should use the credit side.
By all means, because the credit side is the
Okay.
larger balance, correct?
Yes.
So what is left is 3,960 on the larger side, which would be a
Credit.
credit. So the balance of
Yes,
income summary account before closing is a credit balance of how much?
3,960.
Good. In order to close that account, what do we have to do?
Credit the income summary and
No,
debit
no,
Gotta debit
the income summary, my bad, and credit the capital.
yes. And that entry is entry number 3. Do you see that?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
We used it a couple minutes ago.
Sorry?
We used it up. 20 seconds ago, we used it up.
He was trying to trick you. He wanted you to re-say it.
Man, come on, man. Don't mess with the chicken.
The important thing is that you understand it now. Any other closing entries? Any other closing entries?
The withdrawals.
The withdrawals. What's the closing entry for withdrawals? What's the journal entry?
Debit capital, J Miller capital. And credit withdrawals.
No money?
2,800.
Okay. And will these withdrawals increase or decrease capital?
It will increase it.
Withdrawals increase capital?
Oh, sorry, my bad. We taking out the business, so it decreases the capital.
Absolutely. Remember the rules. Profits increase capital. Withdrawals decrease capital. All right. So those are your 4 closing entries. When I give you those on the test,
Oh my God.
usually they should be a piece of cake. You'll never find a simpler set of journal entries in your life. Certainly adjusting entries are more difficult than they are. Okay? But again, the level of difficulty will depend on what? The level of commitment. Okay. So after all of the postings have been done, we have the closing entries, 4 of them. And those closing entries have to now be posted as well, just like adjusting entries. True or false?
True.
Okay, that's a nice test question too, true or false. So let's look at the balance of design revenue. Typical account balance, a ledger balance. Something that you might see on a computer screen somewhere or printed out as a document. Does this account look like something like your checkbook?
I don't know. I never had those.
Wow, things have changed. The young generation has never even had a checkbook.
Lucky him.
Okay? No, they just do everything electronically. They don't
Yeah,
use
they
check.
tap their phone now.
Yeah, everything is on their phone. Their whole lives are on their phone.
I'm so happy that checkbooks are redundant at this point.
But yeah,
So on it will pay so.
but see, you guys go ahead and boast about your digital world. When the government of the world decides they're gonna cut your phone off, you won't be able to stop them. Before the phones, you could go into the bank and get your money and put it under the pillow. But soon, won't be able to do that because it'll be a cashless society. And so whenever you get somebody upset, they will cut off your account. And if you go too far, they'll cut off your phone. And when that happens, dog eat your lunch.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
laughing because that
But
makes sense.
okay.
We have something to curb that now. We something called crypto. Like, you get a cold wallet and you just take your crypto and put it in a
Oh
cold wallet.
man, that's a scam, man. They tell you.
No, let them go right ahead in crypto. I want you to understand that cryptology has to do with dark, evil, wicked stuff. They didn't pick crypto by accident. Crypto means stuff that you are going to be hiding that you shouldn't be hiding. They make it seem as if it's an alternative and fascinating, super digital, innovative mechanism, see? So that you can get tied up with it again.
Yes, sir.
But eventually it's going to come back to haunt everybody. Nothing wrong with digital anything. The problem is mankind cannot be trusted. See, that's the problem. It's like a gun. A gun is a dumb, stupid, rusty thing eventually that does nothing until when
Use it.
human being picks it up. See? Mankind. There's nothing wrong with nothing. There's everything wrong with mankind. Same principle for digital. Digital is a fabulous thing until the governments of the world and other people decide to hack into your system, thief all your money, cut off your accounts, and if you don't do what they say, shut you down.
Yeah, so that.
Nothing. It's all, I'm telling you guys, get ready. It's coming. Okay? All right.
Another way to handcuff you.
They're handcuffing us without it. Imagine once that thing comes full swing, then the government of all the world will be in charge of us. There'd be nothing we can do because now they have control of our bread and butter. The phone that we need for our digital accounts. So if they tell you to wear your mask and you don't, when you go to the ATM, nothing will come out. Because they will instruct the bank to shut your account down until you do what they say. If you say you disagree with same-sex marriage, they will shut you down until
No
you.
man, it can't be that bad, man. Come on.
Yeah, we don't buy.
Can't be that bad.
Yeah, we don't buy.
Remember,
You didn't express your opinions no more.
no. Remember when Noah was building the ark? What did he say about Noah?
He was crazy. Eh?
He was totally crazy. What manner of foolish man is this? And imagine when the time was coming there, Noah still invited them in at the last minute. You can still come in. What do they say?
They laugh at him.
Absolutely. All right.
Tread.
Okay, so let's look at just a little food for thought as we doing accounting. Because see, accounting is in everything. And that little discussion was about how we're going to account when the time comes and these things kick in. They've already started, they're just subtle. You notice if you go to a bank now and they don't want to do a certain thing, you don't like it, they look at you like you do what we say or get the hell out. True or false?
That's true.
Well, okay. It's a nice, sweet, gentle way to say it. It's only gonna get worse though.
You can start trading corn again.
Well, they're gonna take the corn. And if you don't like it, they'll lock you up. You could try and grow the corn, but if they don't want you to eat and they catch you eating corn, they'll pass a law saying it's illegal to eat corn.
Come on.
No more cornmeal.
It's the Bahamas, man.
Well, the Bahamas has most of the things the rest of the world has. The good, the bad, and ugly. The Bahamas have the guys who are still shooting their girlfriends in front of newborn babies. See? That's not on
Yeah.
TV. And that's
Yep.
not in another country. That's here.
Yep.
So if that can happen here, what I told you about the corn is light stuff. Okay?
Yeah.
Young people,
How much you find that baby was? Yes.
doesn't matter. There's
No, that wasn't me. Sorry for that.
No, it doesn't matter what he found out. All he should have done was walk away. That's what I keep trying to tell our young men who would listen. I don't care if you go in your house and you see 7 guys with her. Walk away.
I mean it now, sorry.
Okay? Because if you kill her, then you go to prison for the rest of your life. Families are destroyed. If children are involved, they're destroyed. See? All of that because you didn't walk away. My. Make an adjusting entry, see? And walk away. See how simple that is? Because if you don't, you're going to create a nightmare for all and sundry. Families, you, the children, everything becomes an unholy mess again. All right, so let's look at this particular account. Notice how the account is set up. Please take note. We have a debit side and we have a credit side. We are posting references and all the details. This is just to introduce you to what a typical account might look like in any particular organization. They don't all look this way. All right. But the structure is basically the same, even though the substance might be different. And if you notice, this account has all the transactions in it up to the balance of 13,600. Do you see that?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
And once we post the closing entries, notice on the 15th of July, the last transaction was how much? How much revenue did we get?
9,600
And the balance after that?
was 12,400.
Correct. Then we made an adjusting entry at the end of the month for how much?
800.
Which brought in additional revenue of 800, right?
Yes, sir.
And then we made another adjustment for how much?
400.
Which brought in additional revenue of?
400.
Correct. And so at the end of July, we have a balance of 13,600. And then when we post our closing entry as a debit, see it right there?
Mhm.
The account balance, this revenue account balance is now
0.
0. Just as we did before. That's step 1.
Can I
That's how-
ask a question, please?
Certainly.
Is there any particular reason why we put the 13,600 in the first debit column and not the balance column? In the debit and the balance column? Is there it or I'm just trying to figure out if there's a significant why they put it there as opposed to the balance.
Yeah, the first debit and credit are transaction columns. The last 2 debit and credits are just balance columns. Does that make sense?
It does. So because we're closing it out for 1360 now, we don't need to put that in the debit, the balance debit to say close. No.
Well, we wouldn't put it in the balance debit because it's not a balance. We put it in the transaction column.
Okay.
Follow?
That makes sense. Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, some ledgers may not have 4 columns for debits and credits, might only have 2 or 3. Sorry, 3. Debit, credit, balance. See?
Mhm.
But this one has 4 columns. because it wants to separate the two transaction columns from the two balance columns.
Okay,
All right, absolutely. So if you end up with a debit balance, you can see clearly it's a debit balance. If you end up with a credit balance, you can see clearly it's a credit balance. Okay,
okay,
absolutely. All right. And then if you look right underneath, the income summary transaction is right there. The closing entry for 15/6. Yeah. All right. And then after that, we have all the other accounts that look like gobbledygook with all those arrows, but they're just postings. And this is how a general ledger looks. With all the individual accounts, with all the postings, all the adjusting entries and postings showing there. That's the beauty of accounting. That's why at the end of the day, you can go back and check anything, anytime, any century. And you can prepare financials with confidence because you know those numbers are for more or less correct. All things being equal. Okay. So you have a bunch of accounts in there, and each one of them is showing transaction, adjusting, and closing entries. At the end of the day, all the revenue accounts should be equal to what?
0.
0. Okay. And I urge you, unless you got it automatically because you just get stuff quickly sometimes, please just go back and make sure that those transactions are the ones we discussed and that they are brought to 0. And you'll see that that is so. Okay. Look at the capital account. What's the balance in the capital account? Balance.
43,960.
Good. Which is made up of what?
It's the two credits on the
Um,
card.
What is it made up of? What are the two elements of that 43?
That would be the income summary and the capital.
Well,
No,
both of them
no,
are capital now, but what does the 40,000 represent?
the
this is
capital,
actual investment.
the investment,
Yeah, the original,
investment,
that word, the original investment. And then the original investment is increased by net income, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Of how much?
3,960.
Okay. And what about this other entry, this withdrawal entry? At the end of the day, does it have a balance or not?
It will.
The withdrawal will have a balance? You have to look at the account.
No, not according to this. Not according to account number 313.
Correct. Because the withdrawal account is like an expense account. It has to be closed, right?
Yes.
What's the normal balance for withdrawal account?
0.
debit,
Balance, debit. Yes.
Debit's right.
Very good. In order to close the debit account, what do you have to do?
credit,
Credit. That's if you look at 313, you'll see that happening, don't you?
mm-hmm,
And after you do that, what's the balance?
0,
0. And where did we put the adjusting entry? Where did we post it?
the capital,
Yeah. What did it do to capital?
Decreased it
Absolutely. By how much?
by
2,800,
Exactly right. So profits will increase capital on investment, and expenses and debits will do what? Decrease it.
decreasing,
Exactly. So now you see the accounts in all the splendor, all the things that make up a typical account. And once you understand the setup, which is not complicated at all, you'll see that it creates a whole world of simplicity for the world of accountants. That's why we can always go back and do our thing with comfort, because we know that we do things in a very consistent way all the time, following a very clear set of steps and rules. Okay? Of course, it must be learned and practiced. Otherwise, you're going to mess everything up. And sometimes people do, either because of poor training or they're up to no good. All right, so now that we've closed the entries, Remember in chapter 3, we did what? We adjusted the entries, right?
Yes.
And then we came up with an adjusted trial balance. And then in
Mhm.
chapter 4, we closed the entries. And now we come up with a what? What kind of statement?
Post-closing trial balance.
Correct. Which will have only the balances from the what?
Adjustment. I mean, these look like assets and the,
Liabilities,
let's own it,
assets, liabilities, and owner's equity.
owner's
Wait,
equity.
what happened to the other accounts? Why are they not there?
They no longer exist. They were
They
closed.
closed.
They exist, they just closed and have what balance?
Zero.
And if they have a zero balance, then we can't put them in the trial balance. Do you follow?
Yes.
Where did we get these totals from in the post-closing trial balance?
From the adjusted
Um,
entries.
mhm.
From the adjusted trial balance.
The adjusted trial balance.
Okay, folks? Remember, we have a trial balance that we prepare after we do all of our normal day-to-day posting. Once we prepare that trial balance, then we do the adjustments. When the adjusting entries are done, we post them again to the general ledger accounts, and we come up with an adjusted trial balance. It is from the adjusted trial balance that we close the revenue, expenses, and withdrawal accounts and prepare a post-closing trial balance, which will be made up only of balance sheet accounts. So if we go back to that diagram I showed you earlier, the adjusted trial balance, you'll see that the numbers in the post-closing trial balance are exactly the same as those for balance sheet accounts only. Why? The other ones are closed, and therefore they do not appear until the beginning of the new financial year. As at the end of July 2021, the month or the year, we see what the assets, liabilities, and equity or capital of the company is. And if we do our debits and credits correctly, that trial balance should also balance. Okay? Please do the stop and apply. Very helpful. There's an example. Do you guys have a stop and apply right after that discussion? Right after the post-closing trial balance? Do you have a stop and apply for Fantas
No.
Yes,
or anyone?
page 141.
What's the name of the company?
Countess Recreational Park.
Yeah, so notice that partial adjusted trial balance that they give you. And in the solution, what do you see happening? Look at the solution on June 30th. What is happening?
They closing out.
Yeah, getting warm. They're closing out which accounts?
That's the revenue. That's the income summary. Those accounts that we talked about.
No, that's a good start. It takes a little while to get used to it. But yeah, they're showing once again closing of the revenue accounts, closing of the expense accounts, the closing of the capital of the income summary accounts, and the closing of the capital accounts. Okay, don't worry, you will get a chance to practice the hell out of this because you will get an assignment to give you that opportunity for sure. Okay. All right. So now we come to reversing entries. Anybody ever heard about the reversing entries?
Wow. See why accountants just get paid a lot.
Aha. And imagine this is only the what? Tip of the
Yes.
iceberg.
Nothing for the people who just passing through it.
Sorry?
You know when you, I mean, nothing people who just passing through can learn it. Yeah. The
What do you
same
say?
like people who just passing through.
Passing through what?
I ain't trying to be an accountant.
Oh, that's okay. You're gonna still pick up some important things along the way, even though you're not going to be an accountant. There are a lot of little bits and pieces that will come together that will be very helpful to you at some point in your life, even if you cannot see it today. All right, for sure. I never thought that I would have gotten this deep in the accounting thing either. I was just like you, fresh out of high school, wondering, standing up with my GCEs, the equivalent, the London equivalent of Bahamas BGCSEs, thinking, what the hell am I doing here with my salary, my $65 a week salary? Going to sit in night class for 4 hours, 4 nights a week, and walk home at 11 o'clock at night. For what? See my point? So don't worry about it. You'll find some interesting things to do with it eventually. All right. Let's see. I need somebody to read. I think I've yapped enough. Hadith, are you there? Hadith has gone off to have a Starbucks, it seems. So let's see who will read in her place. Clinton.
Yes,
Are
sir.
you there? Okay.
here.
Does your chapter have any information on reversing entries?
One second, let me check.
141, I think.
Yes, reversing entry. It's a reverse entry is an optional journal entry made on the first day of an accounting period. It has the opposite effect of an adjusting entry made at the end of the previous period, that is. It debits the credits and it credits the debits of an earlier adjusting entry. The sole purpose of reversing the entries is to simplify the routine bookkeeping procedures and they apply only to certain adjusting entries. As used in text, reversing entries apply only to accruals, accrued revenues, and expenses. To see how the reversing entries can be helpful, consider adjusting entry to accrue wages expense made in the Blue Design Studio records. Oh, so we look at the same thing then.
Yes. So
Yeah.
now the key thing with reversing entries is to recognize it said only 2 types of transactions require reversing entries. Accrued what?
Revenues and expenses.
Yeah, accrued revenues and accrued expenses. If you don't know what accruals are yet, please review the accrual section, but basically an accrual is something that is due but not yet paid.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yes,
for
sir.
example, if somebody work overtime, you owe them overtime pay, but if you're not paying until next pay period, then until then, it's an accrual, okay? A build up of an amount that you owe to somebody for services provided. Okay?
Yes, sir.
So that's the key to remembering only accrued revenues and expenses are impacted by reversing entries. So if we look at the first transaction, wages expense, remember at the end of the period, we made an adjusting entry for wages expense for how much, anyone?
720.
720. What was the adjustment at the end of the year? What did we debit? What did we credit?
Debit wages expense
Yes,
for 720 and credit wages payable 720.
absolutely. So we owe the staff member 720. So we're going to pay them next year or next pay period, next new month or year, right?
Yes.
And then we debit wages expense because they worked the current month, which in this case is July.
Yes. And so we
Okay.
will give them that phone.
So now once we do that, notice what happens at the end of the year as well. Immediately after we pass the accrual entry, we pass the reversing entry. Do you see the reversing entry? What is that? Well, let me ask you something. The first entry that you see, is that the reversing entry or the accruing entry?
Let's say accruing entry,
How do you know?
because it's telling us that we have a new expense of 720, but it's kind of like running over from the last month.
Yes, that's a nice way to remember it, especially with an accrual. So yeah, it's an accrual, and then so we pass the journal entry, and then we post it to wages payable, and we post it to wages expense. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when the company pays the assistant on the next pay period, the accountant would make the following entry. All right, on August 23rd, the accountant debits wages payable and credits wages expense. Why?
Because wages payable is what we owe. So,
Correct. Which was a credit balance.
right.
So when
So
we
we have to
pay,
debit that. Yeah.
yeah, we have to pay, we have to debit it to reduce whatever the credit balance was. And then what do we credit?
Expenses, wages expense
For how much?
for the 720.
Okay. And so on August 23rd, payday, what's the balance in the cash account?
$4,800.
What does that represent?
Salaries for, what is it, August?
Yeah, that's a salary for August. What else is posted?
And then you would have,
Just follow the journal entry right up to the T account.
was she was initially owed the 720.
Well, yeah, we paid it off. So when we pay off a liability or payable, which is normally a credit balance, what do we have to do?
But
Debit it to get rid of the debt. And then the final account that is impacted is called what? Sorry?
Should be cash, shouldn't it?
The third account is affected right in this same exhibit. We already dealt with the cash account and the
It'll be,
wages account.
it'll be wages expense.
It would be wages expense. And what was the total wages expense in August?
4,080.
4,080, which we debited to wages expense account. So we see at the end of the year, we make an accrual for money owed, and then the next pay period, we pay it off. Does everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I wonder what happens now. What happens now is a long, drawn-out discussion about something else. What is the narrative for this transaction?
Paid 4 weeks wages to assistant 720 of which accrued in the previous period.
Okay, makes sense. You said that. What about that little notation at the right underneath? It is no, if no reversing. Can somebody read that? If no reversing entry.
If no reversing entry is made at the time of payment, the accountant would have to look in the records to find out how much of the 4,800 applies to the current accounting period and how much applies to the previous period. That may seem easy in your example, but think how difficult and time consuming it would be if a company had hundreds of employees working on different schedules. A reversing entry helps solve the problem of applying revenues and expenses to the current accounting period.
Okay, so now what is happening? Earlier on July 31st, we passed an adjusting entry, correct?
Yes.
And then what happens is in August, what we do is before we make the payroll, we pass what we call a reversing entry. In other words, the same entry that we passed at the end of August, we just reverse it and turn it around the other way. So at the end of the July, we had debit to expenses, wages, and credit to wages payable. The reversing entry was the opposite. Debit to wages payable and credit wages expense. Okay? And the reason, again, the reason why they said we do that is so that we do not have to go hunting for what is outstanding from the previous period. Okay? That allows us to see right away that this liability exists and it has to be paid in this pay period. Okay? You don't have to do a reversing entry, but eventually you'll see how important and useful it can be, but it's not absolutely necessary. Okay? But if you want to avoid any major issues with something that may come up 6 months from now, you may want to do the reversing entry so that the transaction is clear. Okay. So is there anything else of interest? What about, do you guys see the accrued revenue earned journal entry further down? Accrued revenue earned. It's a little further down, just above the stop and apply. Do you see that? No? It's at the bottom. You probably won't have it there. Does anybody see it? With regards to design revenue.
Yes.
Okay. Again, the only entries that we can reverse are what? Accruals. Accrued revenues or accrued expenses. That's really designed to make your life easy. So you don't have to think, well, how many reversing entries do I need to make in accounting? Only 2. Accrued revenues and accrued expenses. We saw the accrued revenue, the accrued expenses, and reversing the pass out payroll. And then in this example, we have the accrued revenue reversing entry. Okay? Remember, at the end of July, design revenue was a credit and accounts receivable was a debit. And then on the first of the new month, we reverse it so that we can keep track of the transaction. Okay. All right. If you do not get reversing entries right away, don't sweat it. Remember, it is really just the opposite entry that you make at the end of the month for adjusting entries. So if you can get the adjusting entry right, the reversing entry is exactly the opposite. Simple as that. Don't lose any sleep over it. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about tonight before we break is the worksheet. Since you have guys haven't read chapter 4 thoroughly enough yet, when you get to the worksheet, please read it very carefully. Okay, very carefully. The worksheet is the paper or electronic spreadsheet that accountants use to accumulate all its accounting information in one place and seek to ensure that the information is accurate and correct before it actually goes into the preparation of financial statements. Okay, so this worksheet has to be prepared carefully, it has to be prepared diligently, and it has to be prepared correctly, using all the principles of accounting that you are supposed to know. Okay. So what is step 1 in preparing the worksheet, anyone? Step 1.
Enter the total, enter and total the account balances in the trial balance columns.
All right, enter and then total the account balances in the trial balance columns. All right, step 2.
Enter and total the adjustments in the adjustments columns. Would
Indeed.
these columns be in the trial balance as well, or in a different statement?
Actually, they'll be in the trial balance as well, which you will see very soon.
Okay.
All right, I'm just walking through the steps, so when you get to them, you say, oh, that's what the heck that is. Okay. Step 1 is really the trial balance that you prepare at the end of the period. Just put it into a worksheet so you can line up all your other work alongside of it. Okay, it's the same trial balance. Step 2 is the details for the adjustments that you have to make, the same journal entry adjustments. We just put it on a worksheet, which you'll see. Those 2 steps we're familiar with. What about step 3? What is that?
Enter and total the adjusted account balances in the adjusted trial balance columns.
Okay, so you have the original trial balance, the adjusting entries in the worksheet, and then the new balances adjust with the adjusting entries that are made. Adjusted the account into the adjusted trial balance, and then we come up with a new trial balance. Something, we've been talking about all along. Any more steps? Or there are just 3 of them?
I thought there was 4.
There are
There.
4. Actually, there are 5.
This is powerful.
Okay, what's step 4?
You kind of scrolled past it. The extend the account balances from the adjusted trial balance columns to the income statement or balance sheet. And then I'm assuming after that, that's when we go to the, what do you call it? The owner's equity thing.
Well, after that, we go to step 5, which is?
Total the income statement columns and the balance sheet columns. Enter the net income or loss in both pairs of columns as a balancing figure and recompute the column totals. That's a lot of calculations.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of gobbledygook until you understand it. So let's back up a little bit and go to this worksheet. Do you have a worksheet in your text?
We do, and it kind of looks identical.
Yeah, is it Miller or another name?
It is Blue Design. Everything is Blue Design.
Okay,
Um,
but the numbers are the same.
Yes, they are.
Okay, so then let's do step 1. Again, this trial balance is headed up like any other accounting statement. The name of the company or business, the name of the statement, and the accounting period that you're reporting. What is the accounting period for this particular worksheet?
Month ended July 31st, 2011.
Okay, so then we have all the account names. And the first thing we do is to put in the trial balance. That's the same trial balance you saw before, right?
Should be.
Yep, it is. When somebody said the balance is 60,080, and I shouldn't say that the credit side is the same. I have to say the amount. Anybody remember that statement by one of your colleagues?
Not,
True words are spoken.
not really.
No. So the trial balance is in balance. Does anybody remember how we prepare trial balance?
From the T account.
Yeah, from the T accounts. We grab the balances that we hoped that we totaled up correctly, and we put those debits and credits in their respective column. Then the second step in the worksheet is the adjustments. We did a ton of adjustments.
That's where the 5 steps comes in. There's the trial balance and the adjustments, and you prepare to adjust the trial balance and the income statement and the balance sheet. Okay.
There you go. So we're now in what step?
Adjustments.
Which step is that?
That's step 2.
Step 2. And where did these adjustments come from? The same ones you did earlier. And put in the journal entry. Do you remember?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Look at the numbers. They're the same numbers that you guys made the adjusting journal entries for. All right. And notice as they are posted in the worksheet, they're given a letter.
Mhm.
Where do you find letter A?
That is rent expense.
On debit, correct?
Yes,
So there must be a credit somewhere for 1,600. Where is that?
that credit would be to the, gotta be the cash. Gotta be the cash.
Well, go and look up the column.
The prepaid rent. Not cash, exactly. It's prepaid rent.
Credit to prepaid rent because that payment you made will reduce it by that amount. So you see, the first journal entry is there labeled A. Each one is A, so we could trace it if we need to. If we don't balance later, we won't be stressing trying to start from scratch again.
Makes sense.
It's properly labeled, you cannot miss it. And we do the same thing for every single adjusting entry. And we label each one A, B, C, D up through wherever we are. Okay, or N. Are the adjusting entries in balance?
Yes, sir.
Okay. The third step then becomes the what?
The adjusted trial balance, creating it.
Yeah, the adjusted trial balance. So we carry over, if we go to the cash account in the original trial balance, any adjustments?
No, there was none.
So you carry over the full amount, right?
All the way.
Okay, accounts receivable?
There was a debited, which increased it by 400, which brought it to a value of 5,000.
Absolutely. What does a debit in accounts receivable mean?
It increases it.
And what does it mean?
That accounts payable or something is paid on credit or something was earned on credit.
Well, we know that we have a debit coming into accounts receivable. Whenever that happens, it wouldn't be a payment.
Maybe you receiving cash.
Sorry?
You receiving the cash for the funds. I mean, for the services that you gave.
Well, let's see. Whenever an asset is debited, that means the asset is increased.
Yes, the assets increase.
Okay, so in that case, that wouldn't apply there.
That's not.
All right. The accounts receivable is increased. What caused it to increase? Go and look for the other part of the entry labeled J or F.
We earned some revenue.
Sorry?
We earned some revenue.
That's a job that we would have done, but haven't received the funds or payment for as yet.
Yes, work that you did, revenue, but you haven't received the payment, so you put it in payables. So there's receivables.
Receivables.
Does receivable go up or down as a result of the adjustment?
Up.
Up. And you do that for every last line in the adjusted trial balance. At the end of the day, if everything is in order, the adjusted trial balance should balance also, correct? All right. Question?
I meant to say yes, but I guess my mic was mute.
Okay. So now we have 3 columns that we are very familiar with in the worksheet. All of a sudden, the worksheet is not the nightmare that it may look like when you flip through the pages in chapter 4. Man, I'm not looking at that right now.
No, it still is.
It still is? Okay, now
It's not as bad, but it's still scary.
What's scary about it?
I'm slowly understanding it a bit more, but I just need more practice, I guess.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That was who said that? See,
Thompson?
yeah, Thompson. Don't worry about it. Because, yeah, you need more practice. You need to look at it again, and you will get more practice, and you will read it again. So don't worry about it at all. The idea is to become initiated, see? Familiarize yourself initially, and then trust me, after you go through it on your own, after you've done your homework, after you've done one more problem on your own, it'll be second nature. And that's the beauty of learning. It stinks, but it's permanent once you finished messing around with it, so to speak. All right, so we have 3 columns. What are the columns that we've completed so far on the worksheet? Or steps? 3 columns of steps. How many have we completed? What are their names?
Three so far. Trial balance, adjustments. Excuse me. The trial balance.
Do you have it right there?
Trial balance, the adjustments, and the
Adjusted trial balance.
adjusted trial balance. That may, and notice at each stage of the game, we check the debits and credits to see if they are what?
In check.
Correct. So that if something is wrong, you can find it sooner rather than.
Dread, I was drinking something later.
Okay, yes, yes. So after the adjusted trial balance is done, what do we do next?
The income statement.
Now, and for the income statement, we know that the only thing we need is revenue and
Expenses.
expenses. So just scroll down. See the revenues on the credit side. Everybody saw that design revenue on the credit side. And then all the rest are expenses. It's really quite simple once you get familiar with it. What are the total expenses?
That is 9,640.
Total revenue?
13,600.
Which one is greater?
The revenue.
So your
Net income.
should be what?
3,960.
Absolutely. Debit or credit?
It would be a debit according to this, but it's a revenue, so it should be a credit.
It is a credit. But when you
Boom.
do your reading again, you'll see it says in the worksheet, you have to take the difference and put it on. In other words, for this column to balance, that 3960 would normally be on the what? Credit side, right?
Uh-huh.
And if you leave it on the credit side, it wouldn't balance the worksheet. In order
Okay.
to balance the worksheet, you put it on the debit side with the lesser amount, so it balances out to 13,600.
That makes sense.
Okay, absolutely. But the difference is still real, and the balance is still a credit balance of 3960. Okay. Final statement on the worksheet.
Balance sheet.
Balance sheet. Any income statement items will be in this column?
I didn't know you, sorry.
Any income statement items will be on this column?
I guess so.
Any
You can say it
income,
slowly.
any income statement items will be on the balance sheet?
Yeah.
I don't know. Look at it.
Don't look so. Actually, no. None except wages payable.
That's not an income statement item.
Yes, it's not. That's a liability. Well, I guess no.
No. The balance sheet only has balance sheet accounts. The income statement only has income
statement.
statement accounts. Separate columns altogether. Okay. Very important to note. Is the balance sheet in balance?
Yes, it is.
Now notice the larger balance is a debit amount, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that difference of 3960, why is it on the right-hand side?
Because it represents the credit. It represents the net income, which is a credit, essentially, because it's derived from revenue.
Absolutely. Okay,
Boom.
and so we put it on the credit side in order to do what? Balance
Balance.
account. All right. Okay, that's your worksheet. There's no magic about it. I will definitely be assigning for you to practice, because that's the only way you're going to be good at it, and that's the only way you're going to be better in your get the better grade in your homework, sorry, your examination. Okay,
Mr. Wilkinson,
Aye.
so I have questions about the examination. Okay, I need you to take it back a notch. Going from the closing entries, right? Would we have to prepare the, Chanel, can you mute your mic for me, please? Can you hear me, Mr. Wilkinson?
I can.
Okay, so from the closing entries, would we have to prepare the journal entries, like how this book has all of the,
Excuse me, somebody can your mic, mute the mic, please, because I really can't hear with her
I
question.
can't hear myself too. Chanel, I think that's Chanel, yeah. Okay, so my question is, all of the entries and the steps, right, that we have listed here, are you requiring us to, because I'm a person that like to be prepared. I don't like to go into an exam if we've been here spending weeks together and got a misunderstanding. So I just want to know for my purpose as well as my classmates, I guess.
Right.
Would we have to prepare all of these entries, particularly all these journal entries, the T accounts, the adjusting before we even get to closing the accounts? Or would you just give us like the T accounts from the adjusted perspective and then we have to go into closing the accounts? Like how are we able to, because if we are starting from the income to the T, to the general, to, we understand the process, but I guess my question is, are you gonna give us as we go along, or will we have to build from the from the beginning? Because that is going to, for me, if we get one step wrong from the beginning, then everything else is wrong.
That's how it is in the real world too.
I know, but Wilkinson, you're just asking for a friend, you know, you want to help us so that we can understand and get it. Like if you go through steps with us, like if you give us more examples, like your book is easier in my opinion, instead of our book, it gives us a more understanding from your book.
I know it seems that way, but it only seems that way because you're still unfamiliar and uncomfortable with all the concepts so far. Trust me, it gets easier. Okay? It gets easier. It doesn't seem that way right now because you're only finishing chapter 4. So you're like, this is, what the hell is this? All right? It's every new student's nightmare, including mine when I did it for the first time. I know it's very common, but if it's any consolation, it will all come together. And am I going to give you a question that takes you from the beginning to the end? Not necessarily like that, but you could get a cross section of questions that says, prepare the journal entries. But if you have to prepare the journal entries, that's easy. Just take the transactions and with the debit, with the credit. That's pretty standard. Or the question might say, the following occurred with company X, prepare the adjusting entries. Well, you know what the 4 categories of adjusting entries are. So again, even though it might seem a little crazy, it's really not that bad at the end of the day. And when I say not that bad, I don't mean it's easy or you should just get it in a snap. No, it doesn't work that way. Just keep working it, working it, working it. That's one of the reasons why I assigned all the homework because I wanted you guys to kind of immerse yourself. I haven't gotten too many questions on the homework, and I believe that's because folks took the time, generally overall, to actually mess with that. Otherwise, you would have had much more issues to question or deal with. So you're on your way. Okay? It's just that, for example, that big old stinky worksheet, that only looks like a problem, but that's just a big old baby. Once you take your hands and wrap it around it. Because really, it just starts off with the trial balance. Everybody in here knows how to get a trial balance now, right? right? No?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Well, I do. Let me speak for me.
yeah, just go to the general ledger and take all the debits and all the credits and add them up. If it doesn't balance, it's nobody's fault but your own. You have to go back and find it, just like in real life. But the important thing is you know the principle. All right, so that's the first step in the worksheet. And usually in a test or even in homework, the trial balance is given to you. You don't have to work it out, you just write it in. That's the next thing. You don't even have to calculate it. And secondly, what's the second thing in the worksheet? What's the second bit of information in the worksheet? Anyone? Anybody looking at the worksheet?
Adjustments.
The adjustments column. Where do the adjustment columns come from, anyone? How do we make those adjustments from where? What type of accounts are adjusted? Let me put it this way. What's an
Accrued wages and accrued expenses are adjusted.
Yeah, accruals and deferrals are adjusted. What are some examples of adjusting entries?
Wages that were owed and that weren't paid
Yeah,
in
yeah, accrued wages, absolutely, owed but not yet paid. Another example?
accrued expenses that are owed but not yet paid as well.
Another example?
I think my brain stopped me just now. Let me read.
Yeah, I don't mind if you check your text.
Okay, only accrued revenues and accrued expenses. So
No, that's for reversing entries.
oh,
For
sorry.
adjusting entries, we adjust deferrals and accruals. What is an accrual? An amount that is owed but not yet due. What is a deferral?
For deferral is putting it off for a later date, but I want to actually get the legitimate.
Real definition, yes. An accrual is an amount that is due but not yet paid. You owe it. A deferral is an amount that is paid but not yet depreciated, as in the depreciation expense account, as in the prepaid account. They are paid, but they expire over some time in the future. Just those four categories represent the adjusting entries. And that's all you'll see throughout your text. So basically, once you go back and learn them, like what are the adjusting entries that have to do each year? Simple. Accruals, prepayments, depreciation. Does it come in one shot? Hell no.
Sorry, Mr. Wilkinson. So
Mhm.
the deferral payment is pretty much like a modernization schedule, then, like you said.
Yeah, when you have a deferral, it's like buying a piece of equipment now
Yeah.
and then depreciating it over time.
Okay. So you
And
just
that's the deferral. So you have it now, but you're deferring its use over the years that you are going to have it. That's why we say deferral.
okay.
Okay? Prepayment, if you buy an insurance for 1 year, that means you're covered for 12 months, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so if you use up 1 month this month, the rest of it is deferred to the what? Future months.
Yes, sir.
And that's all it is. Okay. Takes a little bit to finally let it get down. So your worksheet now has the trial balance, the adjusting entries, and the adjusted trial balance. And what is the adjusted trial balance? Just carrying over the totals from the original trial balance And wherever there's an adjusting entry, add it or subtract it to the original total in the trial balance. And that will give you your adjusted trial balance. But not to worry, the proof is in the pudding, and the pudding is called homework. Once you've done one of them, it will no longer baffle you. But you have to go through the fire. Meaning, do the homework. That's what I mean by fire. All right. Do you guys have the general journal for the company that comes right afterwards? Showing all the adjustments. Do you guys have that? No? Am I the only one with that?
Sorry, Mr. Wilkinson, what's that?
Do you guys have the general journal in your text?
Yes, 146.
Yeah, showing all the adjustments. If you look at it, these are journal entries you've already done, but you should still go through them one by one to make sure you understand them. For example, if you look at the first general journal adjustment, look at it and then tell me what happened.
Seems as if they debit rent. Credit the prepaid rent, so they paid the rent in advance.
Well, this represented prepaid rent that was paid in advance, but the 1,600.
Also,
Go ahead.
No, we're listening.
But so remember when we did the adjusting entries at the beginning? We said we debit prepaid rent for 3,200 and we paid cash for 3,200. Anybody remembers that? No? Well, if we do that after 1 month of rent is used up, then we have to make this adjusting entry to show that we've used up $1,600 or 1 month's rent. How do we do that? We debit rent expense, we credit prepaid rent, reducing that asset account by $1,600. And the rest of these are all the adjusting entries that you did in chapter 3. Just a reminder for you. Yes, they were pretty much on the right track. And these are also the adjusting entries that are sitting in your worksheet. So when you finally get to doing your homework or your practice question, even on your own, you'll see that these are the same adjusting entries that were done at the very beginning in chapter 3. Okay. It's all connected. Okay? And the worksheet is designed to show all of that in one picture in front of you in one place. Trial balance, adjustments, adjusted trial balance, revenue and expense accounts, balance sheet accounts. That's your worksheet. And like I said, it won't roll over overnight. You will have to go ahead and do the practice, which I will give you. And once you've gone through at least one worksheet exercise from start to finish, you'll be like, oh, okay, that was a war, but it worked out. And it's a very satisfying feeling, by the way. Okay. Once you've completed a worksheet. Even accountants in practice, when they finish with that bloody spreadsheet, they're like, thank you, God, because it involves a lot of little bits and pieces. Not always difficult things, but just things that need to be done in order to make the worksheet complete and to make sure the information is accurate. So when the financial statements in columns 4 and 5 are done, they are done correctly. Okay. All right, I know that was a mouthful, a nightful, a discussion full, are like, oh my God, full. That's okay. What you need to do now is, while this stuff is still fresh in your mind, go back. If you have not read the chapter, it's very important that you read the chapter by hook or by crook. All right. And in anticipation of the next homework question or questions. And then when we meet next week, we'll cover the final chapter, which is hopefully not as intense as this one. And that will be where we cut off for your midterm examination. Questions, anyone?
I have a question.
Yes,
In terms of the homework,
yes.
are you gonna like how you shared tonight, or can you email us your workings of the homework? Because I like to compare and contrast and see where I gone wrong. And I know for you to do that to each and every one of us individually, it's gonna be tedious.
Well, I was hoping that somebody would have some questions from the homework, so I don't have to go through the tedious exercise of bits and pieces. Most of the homework is pretty straightforward unless somebody has had a specific problem. When I would have had a chance to look at them, once they're all in, then I'll have a pretty good idea of what persons understand or don't understand, and I'll compile my own little points of interest to discuss with you that hopefully will be helpful to you.
Individually?
No.
Okay.
As
All
a
right.
group. As a
Okay.
group. So that we all get it together.
Okay.
If you have any individual concerns as you do homework, what I'd really like for you to do is make a note of it, and we can do it one of two ways to clear it up in your mind, whatever that may be. One, you can contact me and say, I'm stuck on this bloody journal entry. Why is that a debit? Why is that a credit? And then we resolve it. Or this worksheet doesn't seem to be balancing. I can't get the adjusted trial balance to balance. Well, that usually means you did something wrong in writing up the trial balance and putting in the adjusting entries with the relevant letter references correctly as debits and credits. Not complicated, but some different people have different problems. So that's one option we can do. Or wherever you run into a bottleneck, you can make a note of it when we come to class, like say next week, for example. If you discover any stuff that you wanted to raise from your first set of homework and you didn't for some reason, plus what you will be assigned to do, then you come back next week and say, okay, I have a laundry list of things I'd like to get sorted out. And then we do it as a group, and everybody gets to benefit from whatever problem we might be running into. Okay, so that's kind of the key. I'm assuming that because I didn't have too many concerns, that persons basically got through the journal entries, got through the child balance, and all that kind of good stuff, and they're fairly comfortable with it, except maybe here and there and there. And I'll have a look at that when I see the papers to see if it went the way it should have gone, or if some persons may have deviated, and then I'll let you know where. And you should be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Any question or concern about any particular area that we talked about tonight that might still have somebody feeling like, you know what, that went over my head? Let me ask about that one. Anything like that? With the worksheet or the closing entries, theoretically, they're not difficult. They only appear that way because you knew. Okay? It's
I
like
just
your
think,
first.
Mr. Wilkinson, I just think it's just a matter of timing and practice. I think we're only meeting for a week, once a week. And so the timing aspect, for me, sometimes I guess it goes by quickly because we're taking rather huge chapters, and for persons who are new in the accounting world, it's just, I guess, going quickly. Even though we're practicing with homework and stuff like that, it's just, it takes time, I guess, like you said it, for practice.
Absolutely, it does. And what is interesting is when you have when you do this kind of stuff, student, depending on the kind of lecturer that you have, some lecturers are not so generous. They kind of, first of all, they assume you've read the text. Secondly, they come in and they touch a couple of key areas, and if you don't get it, dog, eat your lunch. They move on. I've had a couple of lectures like that, which didn't leave me very pleased. And so what I try to do, even though the work and time and information, all these constraints, is to, one, try to touch the key areas as clearly as I can present them so you can get a quicker understanding of the material. Two, sign enough homework so you can practice and ask any questions that you might have and all this kind of stuff. And three, leave the floor open to clarify anything that might still be unclear. And despite all of that, when you're new, it does take time, like anything else. When you're new on the job, no matter how many degrees you have, you still have to take some time and learn that environment. It's kind of like that. So don't worry, don't panic. There's nothing magical about it. Okay? Just go back to your first kiss. It was a lousy kiss. The more you kissed, the better you became. It's the same principle. Don't worry about it. Just keep on keeping on. Okay?
I hope that works for our exam.
It will.
Because this 1 day per chapter is a lot.
The killer.
Which one?
The one, like we have 1 day, like for me,
And I need examples.
honestly, I just kind of refer to YouTube trying to help me get through the chapters.
No, now, don't get me wrong. See, if YouTube will help you to understand what is basically understandable already, just to reinforce it, that's fine. But see,
Yeah, because I wasn't understanding what I was reading. You know what I
well,
mean? You
no,
may visualize, you may understand it because you know it. But if some persons like who don't know what it is that they're reading to understand, it's kind of difficult without no one
no,
there to explain it.
I know. For example, suppose I say to you, um, um, je parle français, parlez-vous français? What would you say?
I have no idea what you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had no idea until I learned that either. So don't worry about it. When you're learning things, especially for the first time, anything, it's stinky. I'm telling you, whatever the hell it is. Some things are stinkier than others, depending on the concepts that you have to deal with. But that's okay. You're not really expected to get it all in one big gulp. You're not. Some persons don't get the thing cleared up until the semester's over, until they get to accounting two. They're like, oh, kiss my foot. That's what that was. I didn't get that in one. Don't worry about it. That's how it is. You just keep practicing, asking questions, and keep plodding forward. That's the answer. You're in the same boat with all the students of the world forever. We all have the same issues. Okay, don't worry about it. Keep reading. If you're somebody who catch on quickly, then you'll be better than the other person who has to read it 3 times and still say, oh, Jesus, what the hell is this? See, like that. But that's okay. Whatever your speed and ability to get them, you just keep on with it over and over, practice and practice over and until you get a basic understanding. And it will come. Just don't panic and jump off the bridge too soon before you give yourself a chance to learn this new thing, like any new thing. All right? And
Yeah.
whatever you do, if you're doing any kind of work or any kind of reading and you get stuck, you don't understand it, drop me a note, raise it in the class. The more you do that, the more you help yourself and your colleagues. Because some people are there when they go, ah, thank God she asked that question. I didn't understand that journal entry either. They're going to be even simple transactions that will take you time to learn. Like, what do I debit, what do I credit? It's nothing magical at all. I wish I could just say, just wave a magic wand. It's not like that. It stinks. But that's the nature of learning new information. Absolutely. All right. So don't worry, keep on reading, keep on practicing, keep on raising questions, and you will be fine. Guaranteed. Now, if you don't keep on reading, we're doing questions and asking it, then you should expect less. But if you keep on doing those things, you're going to exceed your own expectations eventually, if you keep doing that. Okay, folks? I know because I see it many times. I've seen my students from 30 years ago still say, Mr. Wilkinson, I thought I'd never get it, but now I get it. I got it eventually. That's normal. That's how it is. Thank God I stuck with it. A couple of them are even CPAs now who were struggling at the beginning, thinking, what the hell am I doing this for? This is nonsense. Now, some of them are actually professionals doing this thing. So don't worry about it. Keep on trucking. All right. So if you have any questions or concerns throughout the week, feel free to consult your colleagues if you know someone, or drop me a note. Let me sort it out. Let me answer the questions so you don't be stuck and sit around feeling stuck. Because the worst thing in the world is to feel stuck and not get unstuck. And then you start getting miserable. Don't do that. Whatever you get stuck on, find a way to get unstuck and then keep moving. Okay? When you guys go back and look at the closing entries in the worksheet, you'll find out that it's so much simpler than you thought tonight, because you were just introduced to it tonight and you hadn't read the chapter yet, which made it more difficult to understand. Which is why lecturers always say, read ahead, because reading ahead doesn't get you to understand everything right away, but it helps to have read a little bit as opposed to not have read, especially with new information. All right, so when you go back now and read the chapter, you say, oh, okay, I get that now, guaranteed. And remember, I am here to answer any questions to get you unstuck, so don't be stuck, please. All right, any other questions or concerns? Okay, well, you guys have a safe week, a busy week, a reading week, a practice week, ask me questions if you get stuck week. That's what this is all about. Wish I could say it was anything else, but it's not. But at the end of the day, you will be successful and you will find it very beneficial somewhere down the road. That's all I can say. Stay with it. All right? Do
Yes,
not jump ship. Question?
no questions.
Okay. All right. So you guys take care then. Be safe. And I'm going to assign some homework for chapter 4 in another day or so. But please, before you attempt to do the homework in chapter 4, please make sure you read the chapter carefully first. Okay? Do not read it like, oh, well, whatever. I'll just skim over it. Don't do that. Read it conscientiously. And if you do that, it will be more beneficial to you, and the homework assignment will be easier for you to manage. And then if you get stuck somewhere, give me a nudge. I'll unstuck it, and then you go ahead and do your thing. All right, so be safe, and I'll see you guys next week, Monday. For those of you who still have homework for me, as soon as it's done, please send it in, because I'd like to review them all together so that I can make my notes as to what I think might be areas that you need to focus on a little bit more, even if it means doing a couple of more practice questions on your own. That's okay. That's what it's all about. Okay?
Yes,
Feel
sir.
free. So take care, and I'll see you on Monday.
Yes, sir.
Okay, take care.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.